One of the surprise updates we've gotten over the past few weeks is on the future of Bethesda, and even more specifically, new updates on the Elder Scrolls 6, and this has larger implications for Bethesda overall. One aspect of this is looking at an older leak that I think has some potential for being true, at least partially, but even beyond that, I want to do a follow-up to the big summer showcase. I want to talk about what we didn't get at that showcase. There's some big things that are coming from Bethesda, but we just haven't heard about them. Like, where is that Fallout 4 Next Gen update? What's going on there? The first of these updates comes for the Elder Scrolls 6, as in the past week we actually got a release window for that title, and in fact we got two release windows for the Elder Scrolls 6. Right now, Microsoft is in the process of attempting to buy Activision Blizzard, but the FTC sued to block the sale. As a result, we recently had a court case hearing from all of the different parties, and we get several updates on the Elder Scrolls 6. Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, was asked about exclusivity with ZeniMax and Bethesda games, and he clarified that when it comes to the Elder Scrolls 6, it's so far out that it's hard to understand what the platforms will even be. When it comes to the Elder Scrolls 6, there's a very real possibility this is going to be a next-gen title. And Phil Spencer continues on to say, we're talking about a game that's 5+ years away. So now on one hand, the Elder Scrolls 6 is almost certainly going to be an Xbox exclusive, but the game being 5 years away is definitely a rough reality. That would make it so the Elder Scrolls 6 is likely going to be a 2028 release at the very earliest. I mean, there's going to be a 17-year gap between mainline Elder Scrolls games, except for the fact that maybe all of that isn't true. As several days later, as a Microsoft lawyer took the stand, we heard a different update. This lawyer goes on to say, could I clarify one issue that counsel raised with you? When you were asking about ZeniMax and asked him to find a game that was most similar to Xbox, he mentioned Elder Scrolls. That is incorrect. There are two Elder Scrolls games. One is called Elder Scrolls Online. That is a multiplayer game. It is on PlayStation today. The game he's talking about, Elder Scrolls 16, the projected release is 2026 as a single-player game. It is not anywhere similar to Call of Duty, which, as you know, is multiplayer and multi-platform. So obviously there is broader context here that we're not going to really go into. This is a court case. They were arguing things. The important part for us is that apparently the Elder Scrolls 16 is coming in 2026. So of course, this was a mistake. A tired lawyer saying 16 instead of 6, but the real curious part is the year. We now have two separate representatives from Xbox giving us two completely different release timelines for this game. And I mean, 5+ years could literally be double 2026 with just 3 years. Despite that, both of these representatives were under oath, although one of them actually shared a specific year while the other one just basically gave a rough estimate. So okay, on one hand, the question is, who's right? Obviously, we don't exactly know, and if anything, I wouldn't be shocked if things aren't even entirely clear right now internally at Bethesda. They're working to finish Starfield, but internally, work on the Elder Scrolls 6 is very likely at least starting to ramp up. Starfield seems deep into QA testing. It doesn't really seem like there's going to be a ton of new content getting added right now, which means that a lot of those devs who were previously creating new content may be able to start moving on to making new content for another game, like the Elder Scrolls 6. And even some of the more recent job listings popping up at Bethesda have asked for experience with the Elder Scrolls construction set, which definitely makes it seem like this is a job listing for the Elder Scrolls 6. A 3-year gap between Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 is something I was honestly expecting, somewhat just because I was being overly optimistic and hopeful, but also Bethesda did a ton of work already. Creation Engine 2 is debuting with Starfield. That big engine overhaul has largely been completed. And although there likely will be further upgrades and revisions for the Elder Scrolls 6, a lot of the heavy lifting seems to be done now. But even further, Bethesda has grown substantially over the last decade, opening up several new studios and dramatically increasing their dev count. Although, as much as I do want this lawyer saying 2026 to be correct, the head of Xbox probably knows, and to me it seems much more likely that the Elder Scrolls 6 is 5 years or more away and not 3 years away. Phil Spencer is intimately involved in the process. We regularly see him visiting Bethesda for updates on their games, and as pre-production on the Elder Scrolls 6 transitions into full production, he is likely the one who actually knows the targets. I definitely trust the head of Xbox a bit more than the lawyer who just called it the Elder Scrolls 16. And with that in mind, this gives us one of the most concrete updates on the future of Bethesda, and it definitely portrays a morbid future. Starfield is right around the corner, and I am incredibly excited for this. But for fans of the older and existing franchises, this likely means that we are seeing Bethesda transition into a once-a-console generation developer. Starfield is probably going to be their only release on the Xbox Series X, and it seems like the Elder Scrolls 6 will be a next-gen game. game for whatever the next-gen consoles are called. Fallout 5 may not even happen until the late 2030s. In a recent interview, Todd Howard said that Fallout 5 is coming, but it might not be coming after the Elder Scrolls 6. It seems entirely plausible that we see a timeline of Starfield, the Elder Scrolls 6, then Starfield 2, then Fallout 5. And if we're looking at 5-year dev times for each of these games, we shouldn't be expecting Fallout 5 until 15 years into the future, aka 2038. On one hand, the reason for this is that Bethesda Game Studios is creating incredibly immersive and wonderful worlds. The quality has very clearly seen a bump as we're seeing with the Starfield Direct, but at the same time, that does still hurt to hear. Our favorite franchise is being put on hold for extended periods of time, and it doesn't really seem like any other solutions are being presented. We've heard time and time again how Bethesda wants to keep Fallout in-house, and even things like dual development, like what CDPR is doing, don't really seem to be mentioned at Bethesda. And Phil Spencer said the Elder Scrolls 6 is at least 5 years away. That's the best case scenario in his eyes. So more realistically, we could be looking at 6 or even 7 years into the future. I'm sure there's some people who are going to doubt this or just latch on to the 2026 number instead of the 5-year number, but I do want to remind you that this was a testimony in court. It was under oath, and it was for a publicly traded company. These timelines are pretty important, and it's definitely something the head of Xbox should be speaking accurately about. But then we also have this leak, the fandom Elder Scrolls leak all the way back from 2020. Following the Starfield Direct, I've honestly been thinking a lot about this leak, as it seems to be an odd one out, at least for me. So now most of this leak is around the Elder Scrolls 6, but there are a few mentions of Starfield, things like the game is getting vehicles, that's likely to be spaceships, and how in general the game's going to be insane. 2 fairly safe predictions even in 2020, but of course both of those things ended up being largely correct. But on the topic of the Elder Scrolls 6, we hear about how it'll be taking place in High Rock and Hammerfell 6 years after the events of Skyrim, and how Bethesda intends to build off of vehicle mechanics developed for Starfield to allow players to traverse Iliac Bay in ships. The current plan is that there will be several different ships to buy and some very light customization for them. They'll range from a rowboat to a big for-sale pirate ship. They all can be crewed by NPCs in the same way that the player can assign NPCs to different jobs at settlements in Fallout 4. And even further, how there's going to be a focus on creating a big bustling city for the Elder Scrolls 6, taking notes from CDPR. But this leak has a lot of problems. For one hand, the leaker literally said it was fake in a rather bizarre apology. They call the game the Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall, which is a popular speculation at the time, but of course isn't actually true. And they even claim a 2024 release date, although this part may even be true, given that Starfield was seemingly intended to drop in 2021 originally. But over the years, for some reason, this leak has just stuck with me, even with some of the red flags, like the leaker literally saying it was fake after it ended up getting a ton of coverage. In his intro, the leaker describes how he wanted to post on fandom as it's smaller and less toxic, but that description of sailing and ships in the Elder Scrolls 6 really closely aligns with what we're getting in Starfield. It does, to me at least, sound like it could be a natural progression of the Starfield spaceship system to an Elder Scrolls game. And this leak has always just seemed plausible to me. Even if it technically is a fake leak, a lot of what is detailed around that ship stuff definitely seems like it could happen with the Elder Scrolls 6. I mean, I can't imagine they're going to add vehicles to the engine to just use it for one game and then not really touch it again. But the other big topic to talk about is the Bethesda Summer Showcase, and really what we didn't get. There are 4 major projects that Bethesda Game Studios is involved in that we didn't get updates on. Their mobile game, the Skyrim update, or what I think is paid mods, Fallout 4's next-gen update, and the Fallout TV show. The Fallout TV show and the Bethesda Game Studios mobile game not getting revealed isn't super crazy. The TV show will likely just get a trailer whenever it's ready. This could be this year, or it could even be next year. We know it wrapped filming earlier this year, but who knows how long the editing process will take. And the mobile game may even just be a next year project. It may have never been planned for 2023. If anything, it's likely all hands on deck for Starfield right now. And honestly, I think that could be the explanation for all of this. It's abundantly clear that something is going on with Fallout 4 and Skyrim. They're getting near daily SteamDB updates, and that's not nothing. I'm speculating this is going to be paid mods for Skyrim and the next-gen update for Fallout 4, but we just heard from Phil Spencer that every QA person in our entire company is playing Starfield right now, looking at bug counts, looking at the quality of where we are. I genuinely feel like what may be happening here is there's literally no quality assurance left for Skyrim and Fallout 4. Starfield is the moneymaker. It has the potential to bring in not just millions, but potentially billions of dollars for Microsoft. Skyrim paid mods and the Fallout 4 next-gen update, which is free, are very likely taking a backseat to that. If Starfield did come out in the first half of 2023, Bethesda would have the QA space to work on these other projects, but I think the problem right now is it's really just an all hands on deck to get Starfield bug free, and as such these other things can't be tested, and as such they can't be teased and released. On the Fallout 4 side, I could definitely see a mini anniversary event in October. Around Bombs Drop Day on October 23rd, we could get news of the Fallout 4 Next Gen update's release and even a preview of it, a trailer for the TV show, and maybe even a trailer for some Fallout 76 update. And when it comes to the Skyrim paid mod situation, I could just see that dropping spontaneously. Paid mods, again, are probably not going to be getting good PR, so a quick tease to a release could make sense. Although at the very least, when it comes to paid mods, at least modders are getting plenty of time to create something genuinely worthwhile here. And lastly, we found out that earlier today, Xbox and Bethesda will be at Gamescom. If you're not familiar, this is a massive gaming convention in Germany, and it's happening just a short while before the release date of Starfield. So I do kind of wonder if we're going to see some Starfield hands-on at Gamescom this year, the opportunity for regular people or even the media to play the game. For all of 2023, I was honestly planning to go to Gamescom. With there no longer being an E3, it's a great opportunity for networking and even just meeting other YouTubers. But once we found out the Starfield release date's on August 31st and Gamescom's going to end literally just days before that, that seemed to put a pin in some of those plans. Either way, those are some of the updates on the future of Bethesda. And if you want a clearer picture on what's coming next, check out this video where I painstakingly break down nearly every detail in the Starfield Direct.